Hello chess friends and welcome to Zadov's chess channel and welcome to a special game that I wanted to show you today. It's Magnus Carlsen aka DrNykterstein playing on Leeches against Rebecca Harris. Yesterday I recorded some videos, played some chess, then I saw again Magnus is playing on Leeches, so I decided to show really a great game. Also a very instructive game in the Evans Gambit. When I saw that Magnus is pulling off the Evans Gambit, it's always a pleasure for me. I wanted to see how Magnus is playing really this tactical opening, so let's check out this very nice game. So e4 played by Magnus, DrNykterstein. e5 we have knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, and now b4 the Evans Gambit. So great opening. We have now really this romantic era playing style b4, forcing your opponent to take. Bishop takes c3, and now after bishop to e7, maybe a more correct line is to play bishop to a5 because this d4 move is very aggressive, so we want to stay with our bishop and aiming against our opponent's king. But here still Rebecca Harris played bishop to e7, and now Magnus has the opportunity to really open the center with the move d4. We have knight to a5 attacking the bishop, and now Magnus gets his pawn back, which is the most important thing of this line. After knight takes e5, knight takes c4, knight takes c4, but now d5. So very aggressive opening line in which Magnus Carlsen has this very nice pawn central control in the center. So it's really time for white to break the center. Good choice here by black to really crack the position, to open the position for the bishop pair. Here Magnus played e takes d5, queen takes d5, and now knight to e3, attacking the queen, and now queen to d8, which wasn't maybe the best of choices. Again, sort of a retreating move by black. Maybe better queen to a5, staying really very actively with the queen, maybe again aiming against the king with preparations to play the move c5. I think this line is much more active for black. In the game, queen to d8 was played, which was really a slight inaccuracy by black, and now Magnus played kingside castle. We have knight to f6, the developing move, of course, preparing to castle, and now c4. Now Magnus has really a dominant center, as this knight is really a great knight. It controls really the whole center of the board. This bishop's activity, or this slice with bishop's activity of blacks is not good, of course. This bishop is a little bit blocked out, although it has a free diagonal, but I'm not seeing a good way where to develop this light square bishop. In the game, castling was played, and now bishop to a3. Very important positional idea. That's why I really like this game. It's also a great tactical opening, but it has also great elements. So Magnus is playing really great chess, even in this fast time format. Bishop to a3. One of the ideas when you face the bishop pair and you have no bishop pair anymore on the board is to get rid of at least one of this bishop. So it's really a great positional idea. After bishop takes a3, knight takes a3, rook to e8. Okay, black has now the open e-file, but this knight is playing a very important role now in the game. This knight, not that it only, as I mentioned, controls the center, it also blocks really this e-file, and that's why Magnus can now play much more freely with this knight on a3. Here, rook to d1, we have b6, a very important move now for black to develop the light square bishop, and now queen to d3. Queen to f3 seems like a dangerous move, but now maybe bishop to e6 can be played. Now trying maybe to crack the position somehow with the move c5. But still, even this c5 move, although it seems like a natural move, is very dangerous as it can be met with some d5 move. So this mobile and flexible pawn structure in the center really plays an important role now in Magnus Carlsen's attack, also restricting this four very important squares. This minor piece activity of blacks can never be good because these pawns are very annoying. In the game, queen to d3 played by Magnus, and now bishop to b7 by black. Now d5. If you try again to crack here this advanced pawn with moves as c6, then you get, I think, d6. I'm not seeing a good way how to attack this pawn. Even if you try knight to e4, it can be met with rook to d1, f3, kicking away the knight. This pawn on d6 would be, I think, very annoying, and this knight on e3 could always come on a very active square on f5, with preparations to play maybe queen to d6, knight to f5, even creating checkmate threats on g7. So it will be very hard to, as I mentioned, to battle against this pawn, because this knight is never free to leave the defense of the king. So that's why here black didn't decide to play the move c6, played queen to d7, completing the development, connecting the rooks finally, and now maybe trying even to double up rooks on the e file. So in the game, rook to d1 played by Magnus, knight to e4, very nice centralizing move, and now f3, kicking away the knight, knight to c5, and queen to c3. This move, queen to c3, is of course very natural move, but I just wanted to ask you a question. Really be honest to yourself. How many of us would probably play the move like queen to d4? It seems like a more natural move, more centralizing move, but you see the importance about this move queen to c3. I was really impressed by this move, because this queen to c3 is supporting the rook on e1, and now we could even go into trades of rooks on the e file. So that's why this queen to c3 is much more better than an obvious, of course, queen to d4. So unbelievable positional understanding by Magnus Carlsen. Here rook to e7, and now knight to c2, preparing to bring the knight on d4, and maybe one of these knights on f5. So in the game rook to e8, we have knight to d4, g6, which was really a mistake, I think, now by black, weakening the pawn structure in front of the king so much. There are now clear targets in front of black's king. Here the three dark squares are very, very nice weaknesses. Now maybe f6 is here an option to really lock here the dark square diagonal, still with some possibilities to bring the bishop somehow into the game, because with the light square bishop on the board you wouldn't be so troubled on light squares in front of the king. But okay, here, as I mentioned, g6 was played, and now this move knight to g4 allows now Magnus to get into a simplification line, in which we will probably trade off the rooks, but we'll continue the game with this huge dark square weaknesses. So rook takes e1, rook takes e1, rook takes e1, queen takes, and now queen to d6. You see black is now forced to defend the dark squares, as this knight is always very annoying with some potential knight to f6 moves. Here queen to e3, and this was now Magnus Carlsen really main mistake, the only mistake I think that he made in the game, queen to e3. A better idea is, I think, to play the move queen to h4 immediately, which allows us now maybe to go queen to h6, or if the queen somehow leaves the d6, queen to d8 is also a very nice threat, or even here knight to f6 is a possibility. So it will be very hard for black to defend this, because there are also some tactical threats with knight to f5, in which we could maybe try a check and then a knight to f6 motif. So these two knights combined with the queen could cause really some dangerous threats in front of black's king. But Magnus played, I think, a mistake, queen to e3, but of course still keeping his attack, still I think with a better position. So here h5, attacking the knight, not a problem. Here Magnus played on a very nice counter attack, knight to b5, queen to d8, and now knight to e5, finally trying to get this knight. Now we have a new target. It's of course this pawn on f7. So queen to e7, another problem. Knight to g5, g4, forcing the trades of queens. But if black, for instance, takes now the queen, it's still, I think, a better position for white. After knight takes e3, you have now two weaknesses, two weak pawns. You cannot protect both of them. So again, I think this will be a favorable continuation for white. So that's why after the move knight to g4, queen to d8 was played, and now knight to f2, we have finally this move c6, which is cracking the position, and now Magnus played knight to c3. We have c takes d5, c takes d5, and you cannot take, of course, because you get pinned here. Queen to d4 is immediately winning, I think, for white. So that's why in the game queen to d7 was played, and now comes knight to e4. Very nice centralizing move. This of course creates new threats here. This fork on f6 is a serious threat. If you trade off the knights on e4, then we could even take with the pawn or even with the knight. In the game, knight takes e4 anyway, played by Rebecca Harris, and now Magnus is playing knight takes e4. Even f takes e4 is here a possibility, getting two centralized pawns. Again, very hard for for black to battle against this centralized pawn. So here, knight takes e4 with this obvious threat, as I said, to play knight to f6, queen to d8, queen to d4, and now f5. It seems now that knight to f6 is very dangerous, but it would be a mistake because king to f7, and you don't have good squares for your knight. Then you have to move the knight somewhere, and now you will lose this very nice pawn on d5. So that's why Magnus played a very nice move, knight to c3, realized his problems. A very important move to recognize now in this fast time format. We have queen to d6, and now h4, creating sort of a blocking system on dark squares. And if we evaluate now this endgame, again, black has these problems, has of course the light square bishop, but again, many of these pawns are on light squares. So our main idea is to get the queen somehow off this d6 square and try to push further this pawn on d5. In the game, king to f7, king to f2. Magnus is playing now a very nice endgame because really Magnus is one of the best endgame chess players in history. Here a6, not a problem, and now a4, creating a blocking system because we can always take if b5 happens. Here king to e8, and now king to e3. Magnus is going with his king even further. We have queen to e7, and now king to d3. Not a problem. We will finally push this pawn. When that happens, black will probably lose the game. Here king to d7, and now queen takes b6. Here black lost the pawn, and white has now completely winning endgame. So in the game, king to c8, another problem, d6, still continuing to push this pawn, queen to d7, and now king to d4. So you see, Magnus is not scared to play with his king in an endgame, which is basically the main rule of endgames. You should activate your king. The king has to be used as a piece, not something that you have to defend. So that's why very, very nice active play here by the king. We have f4, and now a5, cementing the position on dark squares on the queen side. This bishop is again only used as a defender of this a6 pawn. So here queen to f7, not a problem. Queen to c5, we have king to b8, and now queen to e5. Never allow black to create some perpetuals on the king, so that's why it was very important for Magnus to bring the queen somehow into the game and defend the king. Queen to e5, queen to d7, and now Magnus takes another pawn. So you see, this knight is a great defender of the king because this queen cannot create some checks. This a4 square is very nice covered. Here king to c8, not a problem, and now we have some checks. Black has to trade off the queens, and Magnus is of course using now this moment and goes with the king more actively into the game now, with clear ideas to take simply this pawn, and basically it was game over. So great game by Magnus, really nice attacking game, nice Evans Gambit. He made really this blunder sort of, queen to e3, didn't play queen to h4, but you saw even after that mistake, still Magnus had a completely winning endgame, and I'm not sure what to say. It's really incredible for me to see how accurate he can play in a 1-minute bullet game. Great that we have Magnus now playing these days. I will continue to follow his career even in this bullet and blitz games, because these games, although in this fast time format, they are really instructive, showing how to play the Evans Gambit, going into simplification line, playing great endgame strategies, using weak squares, weak pawns, and all of these beautiful elements that we can have in a chess game. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from some other tournaments and some other chess events that are going on. And you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.